Hello everybody and welcome to another Flaming Dice Reviews video. My name is Matt and today we are going to be taking a look at Mysterium. Now there's a good many reviews of Mysterium online, but most of them are with the older version of the game. This is the brand new version that just dropped here in the last month. It's got the newest artwork and it is quite phenomenal. It's a fully cooperative game where one player takes the role of a ghost and the others take the role of psychics attempting to solve the ghost's murder. So let's take a brief look at how the game plays, not getting bogged down in the rules, and then I'll meet you back here for my final thoughts. See you then. Now we are going to take a brief and very loose examination of gameplay without getting too heavily into rules. Now, another thing I should mention before people get it in the comments is that this setup is not exactly accurate. This is just for example purposes without overloading the eyes. Now, the basic idea of the game is the ghost communicates with the other players through the use of these vision cards. Now, these cards are very much like Dixit, beautifully illustrated, and that is the only game-approved way for the ghost to communicate with the other players. Now, the other players are represented by these tokens, and they progress through the game in three main stages. And these three stages are suspects, locations, and possible murder weapons. So, if the purple player, for example, has been given a couple of these vision cards, and based on these very vague vision cards, they guess that the magician is their character. All of the characters or all the players get these vision cards, and then they take a guess. If they're correct, then during the next round, they'll start on locations, and the play will continue in that manner. They'll be given more vision cards to try to accurately portray which location they're getting a vision about. Now, if a player does not guess correctly, during the next round, which is kept track of by this handy dandy little clock, they go back to suspect. So it's possible for some players to be working on suspects, some locations, and some on murder weapons, all at the same time. So being the ghost is very difficult. Sometimes you get cards that you don't feel you can accurately portray which suspect or location the player has. And the ghost keeps track of all of this behind this really cool, matter of fact, it's the best player screen I've ever seen, and we're going to take a look at that next. Now, this is what the ghost side of the world looks like, the spectral realm of Mysterium, if you will. Now, this player screen is super thick, very well constructed, and if you'll take a look up here at the magician, you'll see that the cards match the cards that the players have on the table. There are options on the table for identifying suspects, locations, and weapons. Now, the ghost has to go through these vision cards, and they only have a hand of 7, and pick some they think will help the player identify their correct suspects, locations, and possible murder weapons. So there's several ways that the ghost keeps track of what they're doing. That's of course their hand count. Then there's also these tokens down here. And after the ghost gives cards to a player, he can press this little screen up against this little token up against the screen, and that's just a helpful reminder. Now, as players correctly identify their 3 objectives, they're flipped over to remind the ghost that, hey, this player is now working on location, no longer working on suspect. These 2 players are still working on all 3, so they're still stuck on suspect. Now, this is just a very brief glimpse of Mysterium. There's a lot more to it. There's a clairvoyancy track which helps players in the end game by using these markers that are either guessing that another player is correct in their guess or incorrect. They have little checks and X's on them. There's a lot to Mysterium, way more than we could go to in a brief review video. But do yourself a favor and check it out. It's just such a fun game to play. Now, the last thing that I wanted to do was show off the amazing artwork in Mysterium. So here are some of the locations and the players. The locations, of course, are one of the 3 different objectives that the psychics are trying to identify. And then you have your suspects. And you'll notice that the suspects cards are just full of not only just beautifully done artwork, but lots of different additional items on there with which you can identify vision cards with. Whoop. And then we also have our possible murder weapons. And this is just a very small sampling of these cards. There's actually a ton of them. And lastly, the vision cards. And this is just so you can see how Dixit-like this game really is when it comes to the ghost visions that they give to the players. There's some really abstract artwork on these cards, and it can be really difficult. That's one of my favorites. It can be really difficult to get an idea across to the players. And one final thing that I should mention while we're on the subject of these vision cards is that while the players are progressing separately through the first 3 phases of suspect, location, and possible murder weapon, the final stage of the game is a shared vision between the psychics. So it's very gets even more cooperative at the end, even though players are helping each other throughout the whole game. But I thought that did bear mentioning. Welcome back, everybody. Now that we've seen how Mysterium plays and we've talked about the game a little bit, let's talk about my final thoughts. While I thoroughly enjoy Mysterium, the artwork is just amazing, from the front cover of the box to the Dixit-like vision cards and even the character cards and location cards. The artwork is just through the roof. Absolutely phenomenal. There's a bunch of replayability with this game. Every game you play, there'll be a new lineup of suspects and locations and possible murder weapons. The game is just loaded with cards. So replayability is not an issue. Also, playing the game with a new group would bring a whole new perspective to it. Because much like Dixit, the better you know the gamers that you're playing with in Mysterium, the easier the game is going to be. Speaking of easy, the game has a lot of different difficulty settings built into it. You can decrease the number of times that the ghosts can discard their cards if they didn't have a lot of promising vision cards to offer to the players. You can increase the number of suspects and locations that the players have to choose from, thus increasing the difficulty. Again, the artwork is through the roof, so it scored very high on that. If I had to say anything about the game that wasn't positive, it would be that setup is a little bit of a pain. There's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of pieces in this board game, but they're all pretty necessary. You could even argue that. Setup still isn't very fun. There's a lot of pieces and there's a lot of sorting, especially after the game. You have to put all the different cards into their correct piles if you want to have an easier setup the next time. All that aside though, absolutely love the game. I plan on playing it many times, and well after this review is posted I will still be playing Mysterium. Now, I ran the game through the Flaming Dice Review scoring system, which scores a game based on 8 categories, including artwork, setup, and portability, both things that are very key to this game's score. Replayability, fun, component quality, and all of these scores are based or are scored against a baseline of 85. 85 being a good game that you enjoy playing and playing often. So if a score is above 85, that's great. If a score is below 85, it's a little bit subpar in my opinion. There's more about the scoring system on the website. Anyway, back to the meat and potatoes of this. I ran Mysterium through the Flaming Dice Review scoring system, and it got a whopping 92 out of 100, which is enough to score it a Flaming Dice Review's Editor's Choice Award. Well, if you enjoyed this videos, please be sure to give it a like below, subscribe to the channel. I try to put up as many video, board game reviews, and accessory reviews as I can. Visit the website at www.flamingdicereviews.com. We put up articles, videos, reviews as often as we can. We try to really keep it coming. We also like to give away board games if that's an interest to you. So visit us at www.facebook.com/flamingdicereviews, and I'll see you then, and thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.